Mom had always been weird around me, but I had never expected her to lie to my dad about something like this, and get me kicked out of the house because that was just extreme. She had been a part of my life ever since I was 4 years old, and my biological mother had never been in the picture. After giving birth to me, she just randomly decided that she did not want to be a mother anymore and signed away her parental rights. She and my dad were never married, so it was easier for her to leave, and my father was ready to accept the responsibility and raise me all on his own, so he never questioned it either. She had never tried to be a part of my life, and so, I was happy. Even my father started dating my stepmom when I was 4 years old, and after 3 years of dating, they got married. But by then, I had realized that my stepmother had no interest in being a mother to me. She was just my father's wife, nothing else. When I was a child, we did not get along particularly well, and she usually just avoided me, but as I grew older, we started getting along even less and would argue frequently. Even when the arguments were about petty things, she would take it to extreme levels, and then complain to my father about my terrible behavior, and he would always side with her, which was pretty frustrating because she was the one who picked fights with me unnecessarily. We were already not on good terms, and I was just happy that I was going to be going away to college in just a few months. But that never happened, and I ended up having to move in with my grandparents because my father did not want me anymore. It had nothing to do with money since my dad's pretty rich. He has a paper company of his own, and even apart from that, he had medical insurance for the entire family, and the car was also insured. So I know for a fact that it was not about money. The one thing that made him kick me out of the house was whatever my stepmom had told me, with regard to how the accident had taken place. She had cooked up and fed him some nonsensical story about how I had been planning on going out with my friends, and I wanted to look cool, which is why I had taken the car out without her permission. Apparently, she told him that she had gotten to know about it by eavesdropping on me, and she said that she had even told me not to do such things after hearing that conversation, but I had just ignored her and gone out of my way to do exactly that. This happened after the accident, and the doctors had said that I was going to be bedridden for the next couple of months until I healed enough to resume normal movement. So I was already suffering enough because of that and the pain of the accident, and then, to top it off, my stepmom had started making up stories about me to lie to my dad. For 1 week, we kept arguing back and forth about what the truth was, and eventually, I lost my cool, and I started screaming at her, and called her a lot of names. I accused her of being a liar and said that she was just jealous that she could not have my father all to herself, and I said that she was sick in the head for trying to accuse me of doing something that I hadn't even done, especially given my condition. I think that was pretty much the last straw for my father, and he decided to shift me to my grandparents' house, who was kind enough to take me in. I felt very upset that my father was kicking me out of the house when I was in such terrible shape, and I even told him that the fact that he was choosing my stepmom over me meant that I was never going to see him the same way again, and he said that I apparently needed to be disciplined and he couldn't keep hurting his wife, just because I did not know how to behave myself and wanted to be a brat. So it was very obvious to me that he had chosen his side, and he had decided to believe my stepmom's version of what had happened because he did not trust me. It was really heartbreaking for me, and after that, I made up my mind that I was never going to speak to him again. It was a very hard decision for me to make because right from my childhood, it had just been me and him. My stepmom had never really been part of my family, in my head. She had been there all along, but I never considered her a part of the family because I'm pretty sure that in her head, she did not consider me family either. However, after that decision that my father had made, I decided that neither of them was worthy enough of being called family, since that was a big word that came with a lot of responsibilities. My father had tried to be there for me initially, and I respected that, but in the end, he valued my stepmother a lot more than me. After I moved in with my grandparents, they were the ones who took care of me and even hired a full-time nurse to help me out. They were nice people, and I had always had a good relationship with them. The only reason I had not moved in with them earlier was just because I was still holding out hope that maybe my father would change eventually. But he did not. Tough luck for me. Anyway, they are good people who took care of me and made me feel really loved, since they could understand that I was going through a very bad phase of my life. They tried to get my father to visit me, but he kept coming up with excuses. Sometimes he was too busy, and at other times, he was too tired from work. So for almost 2 months, he did not visit me even once after the accident, and after he had kicked me out and moved me to my grandparents' house. Eventually, even my grandparents got into a fight with him because of how he was behaving and said that it was not fair to me. So my father decided to tell them that he had no intention of getting back on good terms with me anytime soon, because apparently, my stepmom did not approve of me anymore and had given him an ultimatum to choose between her or me, and he had chosen her. He believed that I needed to learn to be a better person and get along with people, and until that happened, he could not see us having a relationship because he thought that I had been a very difficult child to deal with in recent times, and he could not put up with that kind of behavior anymore, for his own sake, and his wife's. So that was that, and after that, we have not spoken. My grandparents were the ones who sent me to college after I had recovered, and they have been there for me all along. 2 years have passed since then, and I'm going to graduate in 1 year now, so I've been trying to move on with my life and it has been difficult, but I have good friends and grandparents to be there for me, so it's relatively easier for me, I guess. Anyway, I hadn't heard anything from or about my parents in the past few years, and until recently, I had no intention of ever getting back at them or doing anything to disrupt their lives. I was living and doing just fine without him, but I guess my stepmom has serious mental problems because she reached out to me last week to tell me that she and my father were renewing their wedding vows in a couple of weeks and she wanted me to attend that event. I was very confused as to why she wanted me there, and I wrote back to her instantly, telling her that I was not going to be coming. but she told me that I absolutely had to be there because my father was going to reach out to me in a couple of days to ask me about it formally, and one of the major reasons that he wanted me to be there was because some of his business associates were going to be there as well, and they knew that he had a daughter since they had seen some family photos of his desk. And it would be very weird to explain to them why I was absent from such an event, and my father had been running on reaching out to me to make amends for the file. Anyway, she wanted me to just accept the invitation and put everything in the past. However, I was not ready to put anything behind me because it had just been 2 years, and I was never going to be able to forget the way that my dad had made me feel. So I ignored that message and tried to get on with my day, but then, a couple of hours after not getting a response from me, she decided to message me again, and this time, she said that she had always known that I was an ungrateful brat who did not know how to behave myself, and this time around, I was still trying to show how low I could go, especially when my dad was trying to make things right with me, even when I did not deserve it. She then threatened me and said that I could either be there, or I could give up any hopes of inheriting my father's business or money in the long run. And she said that she would make sure of it, which is what really pissed me off because she really thought that she could scare me with those cringe threats. That's when I finally blocked her because she got on my last nerve. Before this, I had just blocked them on social media, but I had not blocked their phone numbers because it just seemed unnecessary. However, after that message, I blocked both their phone numbers as well. And I thought that this was going to be the end of it, but even that was not enough, I guess. She reached out to me by writing an email to me and said that I absolutely had to accept the invitation because the renewal of the wedding vows was not just going to be an event for them, it was related to my father's work as well, and he desperately wanted me to be there. Even then, she could not have taken a nicer tone with me, especially when it was they who needed me. She still tried to threaten me into getting her way, and I decided that I had had enough. There was no need for me to run away from these things, and I finally decided to confront the situation by writing a post and attaching all the proof of the conversations that we had had so far. I also wrote about everything that had happened in the past and decided to call her and my father out on social media. I made it a public post and even tagged my dad and my stepmom in the post, along with a couple of his friends from work, whose names and social media profiles I could recognize. That was a deliberate move because I wanted his work friends and business associates to get to know what he had done to me in the past, since my stepmom had made it very obvious to me that the renewal of their wedding vows was going to be a business event for them as well. After the post, I did not expect anything to happen, but then, a day later, I received news from my grandparents that my father was devastated because apparently what I had done had led to a huge loss for them. They were going to have a merger with an office supplies company in a few months. It was just in the initial stages, but now it was probably getting called off because of my post.